rebels are going on the rampage. We could hear what sounded like thousands of people trying to shoot at us. What are they going to do? Are they going to skin me? Are they going to flay me? Are they going to cut me open and rip my still beating heart out? Or what are they going to do? Oh my God. Oh my God.
From Wondery, this is Locked Up Abroad. I'm your host, Jim Clementi. Today's episode is Boy Soldiers, Sierra Leone. When Phil Ashby joined the military, much of the appeal was the adventure and danger. His courage and hard work got him promoted as the youngest admiral ever in British history. But a desk job wasn't for him. When the opportunity to work with the United Nations in West Africa came around, he jumped at the chance. In January of 2000, he was posted into territory in Sierra Leone held by the Revolutionary United Front. Sent to disarm the boy soldiers under the thumb of the vicious rebels, he ends up fighting for his life and must plan a daring escape.
I like doing something that involves a bit of risk. Running up hills and jumping off cliffs. I've been trained in the jungle. I've been to the desert with the Royal Marines. And I found myself at the age of 29 being promoted to major, which meant I was the youngest major in Britain at the time. But the downside of being promoted early is that sometimes you get promoted out of the jobs that involve running around. And I was promoted into a desk job working in London. I found myself using the office photocopier and moving blocks of paper. I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. So when the opportunity came up to go and spend 6 months working with the United Nations in West Africa, this seemed like too good an opportunity to turn down, and I jumped at the chance. Sierra Leone was beautiful, but it was ridiculously hot. It's just like somebody's holding a hairdryer in your face. The local RUF representative was a character called Colonel Sharif. He was well educated, spoke good English, and we got on quite well. Sharif told me about some of the strange local beliefs that some of the rebels had, and there was a lot of black magic going on.
They say, if you eat the heart of a brave man, be brave yourself.
He asked me slightly pointedly,
are you a brave man, Major?
I was like, absolutely not. No, that's not me at all. I just had to ask him, you ever eaten anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Is it true what they say? Does it taste like pork?
I don't know. I'm Muslim.
That's not what I was expecting. That's not what they teach you in the recruiting brochures about what the bad guys are going to be doing. We drove about 150 miles into the middle of Sierra Leone to a town called Makeni. There were approximately 10,000 armed combatants in Makeni. They're kids whose average age was about 12 years old. The militias would recruit child soldiers by killing their families. So the only family that the child soldiers had left were the militias. I saw 2 5-year-olds who both carried AK-47 rifles, which were longer than they were tall. These kids would do anything that they were told. They'd clearly been looting and pillaging women's wigs, and they'd be running around wearing these crazy hair designs. What's your name? I look him in the eye. I am Dead Body.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Body.
I am Staff Captain Dead Body. It's just a bit mad.
Pleased to meet you, Staff Captain.
I can see he's got his hand on his rifle, he's got his finger on his trigger. I just want to calm things down. How old are you?
15.
And how long have you been a rebel?
17 years.
And he'd then smile. Despite himself, he couldn't help but smile.
That's very impressive, Staff Captain.
End of April, it's 4 months into my 6-month posting. We finally established all the disarmament centres, but it was a bit frustrating because nobody was coming. Basically, we're a bit bored. We were unarmed, but there were armed Kenyan soldiers who'd be manning the gate and just providing an armed presence. We see a pickup truck coming along the road. A load of guys shouting and jeering on the back of the truck, brandishing their weapons. And I see that it's Colonel Bao, the local RUF hardliner who's driving. And he said, my men are angry with the fact that you are here. You are here to disarm us.
We don't want to disarm.
It's late morning, but he looks like he's been drinking. You can smell it on his breath.
That's unfortunate, Colonel, because we have a job to do.
He wasn't here to make small talk. And then he launches into a tirade of his own. When the hungry lion roars,
and the blood flows into the river, the world will remember Bao.
he reminded me like of, a bad-tempered dog, like some American pit bull terrier who was after a fight.
Power to the people! Power to the people! Power to the people! Power to the people! Arms to the people!
And I'm sitting there all the time thinking, shut up, you idiot.
So what would happen, Colonel, if I did decide to disarm some of your men?
If you do that, then you'll be lucky to leave.
And he was almost like a James Bond baddie, the way he sort of laughed. I'm thinking, this guy's bark is worse than his bite. But I was wrong. So, 29th of April. Won't forget the date because it was my 30th birthday. The temperature was somewhere in the mid-90s. Imagine the scene. It's refugees coming along from the road. That's what they were trying to look like. They were very, very cagey. They were a bit scared.
What's this?
It transpired that they were rebels. And they said they wanted to hand their rifles in.
Like, take this?
Another guy's got a hand cart full of mangoes with a rifle hidden underneath it.
All right. Come inside. Bring him in. Let's go. Move. Get him inside.
They were very wary because they hadn't been told by the rebel hierarchy that it was okay to disarm. From Bao's perspective, the weapons were RUF weapons, so we'd stolen them off him. I told the United Nations headquarters, there is a serious risk that we will provoke a violent reaction. We got the response that we should go ahead and destroy the weapons the next day. I then got on the phone and phoned one of the senior British officers within the United Nations headquarters to say, listen, sir, do you know what's going on? And when his considered reply was, look, there's a risk involved, but do it anyway, then for me that was enough, and I trusted my bosses, and we knew we had to get on with the job in hand.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Out.
Every one of those weapons that was handed in to us, we'd physically destroy. We'd take out a hammer and smash the trigger mechanism, whatever it took to put that weapon out of action. As I'm driving the 3 miles back towards McKinney, I see Bao coming the other way with a pickup truck. He looks angry, but he always looks angry. He has a group of armed men with him, but he often had a group of armed men with him. Sometimes survival comes down to judgment and skill, but for me, it was just the fact that 1 o'clock was lunchtime that saved my life.
Boy or girl? How old? to you.
I'm sitting there eating my lunch. Far in the background, we hear some rifle shots. Then we hear from the Kenyans on their radio net that there's been some sort of attack at the disarmament centre. Thinking, oh God, I'd seen Bao going in. I didn't know what the hell had happened.
Confirmation, it's kind of Bao.
My heart's starting to beat faster. Something is going wrong. We're losing control here. We can hear gunfire in the distance. We can hear gunfire on the radio. And then we hear the final message. We're about to be overrun. Then nothing more on the radio. I'm on the satellite phone saying, listen, this has happened. What do you know about it? Get straight on to the rebel headquarters and tell them that there's been a mistake. Bao, he started attacking the United Nations. Get them to stop. We were told that we should send down a team of negotiators and find out what the hell was going on.
All right, we're heading over there now.
I jumped into the UN Jeep along with the Gambian officer, and as we were about to drive out through the gates of the compound, somebody shouted that I was wanted on the satellite phone in the operations room. So I jumped out of the Jeep, and my place was taken by a Norwegian officer. They didn't come back. The Norwegian chap pressed transmit on the UN radio that he had. So we heard these guys were jostled, were shouted at, beaten, stripped of their uniforms, tied up, and then the radio transmission ended with a single gunshot. This is happening to them. It's probably going to happen to us. We're stuck. We're unarmed. We're surrounded. The roads have been closed. There's no getting out of there. More and more people are gathering outside our house. A rebel truck drives along the main road, firing shots towards our house. Chanting, people shouting, looting. The rebels are going on the rampage. It's like a group of caged animals who've been caged for too long, and now the gates have been opened and they're out on the warpath. And I'm now feeling horribly aware of the colour of my skin, the fact that I was the disarmament officer, and the fact that Bao in particular didn't like me. Not a good feeling at all. There's a small amount of relief, a small amount of hope when I'm visited by a more moderate RUF contact, Colonel Sharif. I was saying, well, you know, what's going to happen here? Should we just try and drive out? And he's saying, no, stay where you are, stay where you are. Don't let Bao get you. And he's saying Bao has special blood. I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? He says, well, he's going to eat you if he gets you. I'm just thinking, oh my God. Oh my God. I reasoned it would be a matter of time before Bao would come to get us. We should get into the compound where the Kenyans are about 800 meters down the road. The Kenyans are the United Nations armed soldiers. By this time it's broad daylight and there's people everywhere, but I thought we might be able to trick our way out. And I remembered a story that actually a Canadian park ranger had told me about what to do if you're attacked by a grizzly bear. You simply lay your rucksack on the ground in front of you, and the bear will be more interested in eating the contents of your rucksack than he will be in eating you. So what we did was to put the TV, the video, the fridge near the front door. And then once their attention was, what's happening at the front door? That's when we went for it. You've never seen a group of people run as fast as we ran that 800 metres to the Kenyan compound. And you can almost become hysterical with excitement because you think you're going to be okay. And then just as you think you're going to be okay, the reality sinks in. It wasn't a fortified position in which we could fight. The compound itself had a 5-foot-high mud brick wall surrounding it. I think it was an old Catholic mission compound. It had a series of burnt-out buildings. We'd got out just in time.
Want more Locked Up Abroad in your life? Introducing Wondery Plus. Wondery Plus is the only place to get exclusive access to unreleased audio content, including an unaired interview I did with Billy Hayes. He was featured in our first episode, and there's going to be much more. With Wondery Plus, you'll hear stories you can't hear anywhere else. Wondery Plus is also home to behind-the-scenes looks at our show, scripts, and even more. Visit Wondery.com/plus to continue to experience Locked Up Abroad and to get your first 30 days free. That's Wondery.com/PLUS. Don't miss out on all the exclusive content your ears can take. Sign up today.
Bao was now... He knew where we were.
Check the buildings in the back. Yeah.
Phil.
I now found myself in the same situation as 2 other Brits and a New Zealand officer. The New Zealander, Dave, looked suspiciously like a Brit as far as the rebels were concerned. Paul, naval officer, intelligent, brave, but what he wasn't was a soldier. He was a submariner. The best trained guy out of the others was a young army officer called Andy. He'd just been released from hospital, suffering quite badly from typhoid. We didn't have very much water, we didn't even know each other particularly well, and suddenly we were thrown together. And we very quickly agreed that we'd stick together whatever happened. I went towards the wall to have a look out. The rebels were in a state of anarchy. They were running around the town, taking pot shots, disorganized attacks on our position. And I thought, well, while the rebels are running wild downtown, I can lead a group of men out of here. You know, we'll get out of here, no problem. So I got on the satellite phone and I asked the United Nations, and I asked the Brits in the United Nations, I said, look, would you back me if I attempted to lead a breakout from here? I think our opportunity to escape is now, and I think we have a good chance of success if we go now. I was told no. Stand and fight, stand and fight. But I'm going, but sir, we have no weapons. And he simply said, stand and fight anyway. Great. I did what I was told. As darkness fell, the rebels encircled our position. They then began rhythmic drumming and chanting. We get everybody in the trenches. We know that the attack's about to happen. This isn't a military thing that they're doing, it's some primeval, spirit worshipping. They're psyching themselves up. We could hear what sounded like thousands of people trying to shoot at us. And when you hear a bullet going overhead, you hear a crack. The bullets are travelling so fast, they're actually travelling faster than the speed of sound. And you can also feel the air pressure changing as these bullets go nearby. So not only can you hear it in your ears, but you can almost feel the air pressure changing around you as these bullets go. There'd be lulls. All the Kenyans are in their trenches with their weapons in their shoulders, their fingers on the trigger, ready, holding their nerve. There's no point shooting into the darkness. We don't have enough ammunition for that. The guys who did have ammunition only had 100 bullets each. And we waited until the first rebels started to try and climb over the walls. And when they did, that's when we shot back.
There. Now there.
Bang, bang. Bang. Gone. As we started hitting them and their bodies started falling back onto the outside of the wall, then the other rebels wanted to back off. They didn't want to share the fate of their companions who tried climbing in first. For 20 minutes, there'd be sporadic gunfire. Then for 20 minutes, nothing. And I was crawling around there wondering what was going on, and I heard a dull thud. And my immediate thought was that maybe someone had thrown a hand grenade in. So I ducked down, counted to 10, and when whatever it was hadn't gone bang, I knew it wasn't a hand grenade, so I crawled over to investigate. And I felt around in the bushes and felt this object, and I picked it up, and there was a sudden realization that I'd just picked up a severed human hand. The intensity of the attacks in the morning was dying down. It was so hot that it was just like being in an oven the whole time. Not only are you losing energy through sweating, but every time you hear a gunshot, it was like a jolt. And then you can't relax, you can't sleep. And then in the end, almost like a medieval siege, they knew that our food and water would run out, and then they'd win. On the third day of the siege, the rebels tightened their cordon. We were effectively trapped. We received news on the satellite phone that diplomacy had failed. The United Nations headquarters, their advice was that we should attempt to escape. The implication, if we stayed where we were going to be slaughtered. For God's sake, when I said I wanted to escape, then you told me no. And now when the situation is much harder to escape, you're telling me that we've got to go for it. We realised that we were going to have to do something to rescue ourselves. The outside world was not going to be able to help. The thing, perhaps, that made my mind up for us was when, during that fourth day of the siege, under the banner of a white flag, we saw a group of rebels coming into the compound. And they had a simple message, which said, "Brother Africans, we have no fight with you. Hand over the white men and you can go free. Refuse and we'll kill you all." And to prove how serious they were, they skinned a prisoner alive. I sat down with my 3 British colleagues and we said whatever else happened, we were going to attempt to escape that night or die trying. We'd be aiming for mile 91, which was a small United Nations held town about 50 miles to the southwest of McKinney. We'd move only at night, laying low during the daytime. We then took out our knives and cut off the United Nations badges on our uniform. We were no longer United Nations observers. As far as I was concerned, we were once again combatants. We were soldiers. I made one final phone call. I phoned my father. And it was the only time during the whole horrible situation, during the whole siege, that emotionally I lost him. I found myself just being a child who couldn't stop crying, and my dad was just telling me to be strong and to keep it together and to do my job properly. He knew that this was potentially goodbye. Our plan was simple. We'd attempt to jump over the wall and run through the rebel cordon at about 3 o'clock in the morning, when we knew that the rebels were likely to be at their lowest ebb. We walked in single file towards the northwest corner of the compound. I was in the lead. I went to the Kenyan corporal who was in charge of his section and said, "I'm a British soldier.
I've been ordered by my government to escape. Will you help us?"
I felt strangely calm. My senses seemed hypersensitive. I felt that I could see in the dark. I could hear a pin drop a mile away. And if anybody had tried to have stopped me, I'd have been able to take their weapon off them and rip their head off, even if they'd shot me first. I really did feel so alive. But I knew it was now or never. This was our chance. I knew I had to keep low. The guys close behind me. I come round the side of the house. I felt the barbed wire coming into my face, and it cut my lip, and I tasted blood in my mouth. And there in the darkness, I saw somebody moving. And I just made out his eyes. I thought, well, this is it. What happens here? And then just for a split second, I thought, you know what? The best thing to do is don't rush him, just rush past him. In that moment of the rebels not knowing what was going on, we were past him. Every step was a step away from danger. This was really working. There was just this sort of feeling of exhilaration of, we're riding out our luck here. This is good. I don't remember for a moment, for those first few hours, feeling tired or anything like that. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Come on, keep going, guys. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. I saw that Andy was having a hard time, and I could there were almost demons in my mind telling me, you'd be better off alone. Push on your own. You'll be quicker than these guys.
Come on!
Come on, you bastards. You've not done your share of the hard work. Ah! I heard somebody fall behind me. Come on, get up, mate. Come on.
Come on.
We're really tired. We've not slept for 5 days. We've been drinking almost nothing.
Okay, we did it. We did it for today.
Just before first light, in case somebody was tracking us, we crawled underneath what seemed like a fantastic hiding place. As we lay there, we heard some voices nearby. We could actually hear people using buckets to get water. And it turns out that the fantastic hiding place that we'd identified in the darkness was all of 20 or 30 yards from the edge of a village. And that close to McKenney, we had no doubt that there would be rebels in that village. We were on our 6th day by this stage with no sleep, but because of the proximity of the rebels and the villagers, we couldn't sleep. We lay there for hour after hour, just being eaten alive. My throat is swollen from the lack of water, and I could feel the back of my throat was cracking. I heard some stones coming through the air, and I thought, what the hell's going on here? There were some kids who were throwing stones at a nearby mango tree, trying to knock down fruit. I was just wondering what the hell I was going to do if one of these kids, while trying to pick up fruit, suddenly saw us. I was going to have to silence an innocent kid in order to stop our position from being given away. By the end of the day, we knew that our main enemy was our thirst. If we didn't find water, we were going to die. There was a possible source of water, a dotted blue line on the map, meaning seasonal river, about 5 miles to our west. I whispered to the others that I thought we should drink the rest of our water to give us enough strength to be able to keep going for a few more hours. I remember taking the last few gulps. I moved it around in my throat to try and keep my tongue and my tonsils as wet as possible.
If you're like me and you don't have a lot of time to shop and cook, Blue Apron is the answer. It's amazing. They send you a box once a week or twice a week with all the ingredients that you need to make amazing meals. I'm not talking about a hamburger or, French fries. I'm talking about gourmet meals. If you spend a lot of money at restaurants and high-end grocery chains, now you can spend under $10 a person for every delicious meal. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free, with free shipping too, by going to blueapron.com/lockedup. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. That's blueapron.com/lockedup. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
The next few hours, they just go a bit hazy. We were all in and out of consciousness, stumbling. When you get badly dehydrated, you stop sweating, and when that happens, your body temperature goes up, and very quickly you can pass out, and it leads to your death. If we stopped, then we were going to die. We had to keep going. This was our 6th night with no sleep. In the staff officer's handbook, they tell you that after 96 hours without sleep, a soldier is effectively useless. We'd gone almost double that period. There was this big African lady in a white shawl who was along by our side, and I had no idea what she was doing there. And I knew it was a hallucination, but it didn't make it go away. Eventually, we saw what looked like the trees that would be next to a riverbank, and then we could make out the riverbank itself. Came over the bank. There was no running water. I thought maybe there'd be some small puddles, so I went down on my knees, feeling around me as best I could, feeling for small patches of moisture. Still nothing. There was no water. And I just remember falling back against the bank and looking up at the sky and wondering what was going to happen next. We were in a tropical jungle, and yet I was about to die of thirst. I was too tired and thirsty to be scared. I was too tired and thirsty to be in any sort of pain. I was thinking, I'm about to die here. I've done everything I can. I've tried, I've failed, this is it. And then, as we were lying there keeping still, we heard the noise. Frogs croaking in the darkness. And it struck me that where there were frogs croaking, surely there had to be some water. It was just the act of being silent that had given us that one opportunity we needed. We found some small muddy pools. There was leaf mold, there were dead insects in the water, there was all sorts of scum, but it was just the best water we'd ever seen. We took our water purification tablets out and using 5 times the normal doses, and we started drinking. Looking at the map, I considered that we were probably now far enough that I could call for a British military helicopter to come and rescue us. I pulled the satellite phone out, pressed the on-off switch. Nothing happened. Whether moisture had got into the battery, whether I banged the satellite phone against a tree the night before, I don't know, but it wasn't working. There was nothing more we could do. When I woke up after maybe 20 minutes, just a little bit of sleep, I felt just a little bit more rational again.
Let's go.
I thought we should just keep going as we are. As a commando, you learn that one of the basic rules is that you move only at night. You hide during the daytime when people can see you. But I think it was Paul who said, Phil, we're going to have to change our tactics here. We're moving too slowly.
Moving at night is not working.
I'd become fixated on my plan, and maybe my plan was not the right one. It had taken us 2 nights of effort to go less than a quarter of the distance we needed to go to get to safety.
Find a guide. Find a guide. We have to take a chance. We have to trust him.
If we were going to find somebody to act as our guide, then we were going to have to trust our lives to someone who we didn't know. In the morning, what we did was to crawl forward to where the forest met some agricultural land. 200 yards from the edge of the forest, we could see a small farm. 4 mud brick buildings with thatched roofs on the top. There were no animals. I guess the rebels had taken the animals away, but some people were still trying to farm, and that was the first good indication. And then we saw an old man. A man maybe in his early 40s, but by Sierra Leonean standards, he was quite an old guy. While this guy looked like a civilian, his sympathies could be with the rebels. We were terrified. Maybe somebody would appear with a gun. It may sound like a small thing, a stupid thing, but I knew the rebels, and the last thing they did was do an honest day's work. So when I saw this guy actually working hard in the field, I thought, this looks like a normal human being. This was going to be a gamble. Suddenly, I'm in the middle of an open area, and there was nothing I could do to hide myself. But at the same time, there was almost a sense of relief. For the first time in several days, I wasn't acting like a fugitive. I was walking tall. I was proud. I remember the wind blowing around, and the sun was in my hair, and I just felt like a real human being again. As we approached, I just initially saw in his eyes that he was starting to smile. And then, when the beginning of a smile became a big, broad smile, I just knew that it was the beginning of the way to safety. From that point on, friendly locals were going to hand us from village to village, from guide to guide, to enable us to get back to our UN safe haven. We were safe for now, but although I didn't know it at the time, for me, the biggest challenge was yet to come. I'm sitting there on a wet and windy Thursday, staring at the computer screen. I just suddenly felt my left leg going to sleep. So I stood up and I walked around the office, shook out my leg a bit and sat back down. Then my right leg started to go to sleep. And then as I sat there, I felt a creeping numbness coming up my body. And by the time I was rushed into hospital that night, I was effectively paralyzed from just beneath my ribs. Turns out that I'd brought home the virus that was causing inflammation in my spinal cord. Whether it was something I ate, something I drank, an insect that bit me, I guess I'll never know. The 50 feet that I had to walk on my own to get to the hospital toilet before I was allowed to leave hospital was in some respects harder than the 50 miles I had to walk through the jungle. The wheels of justice finally turned, and Bao finally got arrested.
Mr. Bao sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 25 years.
Then hopefully, Bao will spend the rest of his life in prison. The bad guys don't always win. The good guys sometimes win too.
Thank you for listening to Locked Up Abroad. You don't want to miss a single episode, so subscribe today on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the Wondery app on Android, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll find a link to subscribe on the episode notes. Simply tap or swipe over the cover art. You'll also see some great offers from our sponsors. Please support our show by supporting our sponsors. If you have a moment, I'd love for you to complete a small survey at Wondery.com/survey. Give us your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to tell all your friends about our show. Locked Up Abroad was produced by Raw TV Limited for National Geographic Channels. For our audio adaptation, the editor is Sergio Enriquez. Our producer is Donna Himes. Our executive producers are Jeffrey Glazer and Hernan Lopez for Wondery.